Hello, I'm Janet Glynn Smith. I'm one of the tutors here at CICCIC, Taunton Art School, and this morning I'm going to give you a demonstration of various ways of looking at still life. And for that purpose I've set up a small still life in a box which contains a variety of elements chosen quite carefully to give us contrast, different colours, obviously a variety of shapes, man-made and organic objects. And I'm going to go through 2 or 3 techniques as an approach to a still life exercise. For the first part of this demonstration, I'm going to use a pen, which I cannot rub out, and I'm using that so that I'll get a fluid line, which I can't alter, and I'm going to try and have a rhythmic approach to establishing what I find interesting in this still life and how and where I'm going to place it. So I'm going to start from the bottom left-hand corner looking at this frame, and I'm just going to loosely draw it, keeping a very lightweight line and thinking about how the shapes come over the top of each other. And because I can't rub it out, I'm going to have to make speedy decisions in order to establish what it is that I'm looking at and what I'm finding interesting. So everything inside this box will be treated the same way initially. These are just fine liners, which are a black ink, and they're quite strong, which will hopefully enable you to see what it is that I'm looking at and how I'm taking the pen around the composition. I'm not trying to keep to scale, I'm just trying to draw what I see and get a feeling of the contents of the box. If I wanted to be terribly accurate, I might like to put a grid underneath, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to keep it loose and sort of keep the fluid line going, establish the shapes and where they are in relation to each other. The combination of man-made shapes and natural form is very common in still life compositions. And the artists of the Renaissance in particular used cloth set on clay in order to practice drawing folds. The photo frame is a personal element in the composition, and if you set up one for yourselves, it's nice to think of things which might have a story to tell beyond just being a means of practicing your still life drawing skills. So this is my first setup within the scope of the box. Having things in a box does help you pull your eye in and focus. I'm glad I brought more than one pen. I don't think ink pens take kindly to drawing upright. Lots of creases in the background and the papers that I've put in, but I'm going to sort of more or less ignore those. Few little details, and I've now had a fairly good look at what is in the box. Okay, so that's just a loosening up exercise as a starter for this part of the demonstration. For the second demonstration, I'm actually going to use traditional selection of pencils. I've got an 8B sketching pencil here, and I like to use materials which are water soluble. So if I then decide that I want to put a wash down or I want to turn it into a watercolour, I can do that. And I've also got some pencils here which are slightly more unusual. These are Cumberland pencils, and they have a very flat, square nib, if you like, and that allows you to do shading very, very quickly. I like to use sort of a range of pencils. I've got an 8B, a 4B, a 2B, and I'm going to introduce a little bit of colour to introduce some tone, and that will help establish the shapes again against each other within the composition. And the nice thing about this, of course, is it's all very stationary, very still for me, so I can keep looking and decide what I want to make more important, which I want to bring forward, which I want to lose. So I'm going to start at the top this time, and with a very traditional pencil, trying to keep a nice smooth line, looking at the plants, nice organic flowing shapes. Okay, I think that's shown the purpose of building a little bit of colour into established shape and form. Thank you. So for my third demonstration, I've got a piece of watercolour paper here, and I've already loosely drawn the outside of my box. But again, everything is water soluble. And now I'm going to tighten up slightly, and sometimes the way of doing that is to create a little isolating frame. Pick which bits of your composition you find most interesting. But I'm just going to draw with a water-soluble pencil and then concentrate on a little bit to give you some ideas about colour. Right, so I'm very drawn to the teasel, so I'm going to start with the teasel, and I'm going to take a little bit more time just to establish where it is. It's the kind of focal point of the upper part of the composition. And if we're talking about composition, then the golden rule is never to put anything slap bang in the middle. And try and think about sort of the golden rule where you divide things into fifths or thirds even, in order to get a nice balanced composition. So don't put anything slap bang in the middle. And always have one area when you start to paint which is perhaps more important, a focal point, which you concentrate on. And I'm just going to come down into this corner. I'm going to forget about worrying over that area there. I'm going to put my little picture frame in as a contrast. Okay. And then the edge of my ginger jar, which comes up here. It's a nice rounded shape, and it's got some nice blues in it, so I'm going to be looking at the colour. Little ivy leaf here that's crept in from somewhere. And I'm going to go across. So if you're painting, you should always walk, if you're right-handed, which I obviously am, you should work from the top left-hand side down, so that you don't pull across your own work and cause yourself smudging. But for the purpose of the demonstration, I'm trying to keep it open so you can see what I'm up to. Putting the book in, so a big leaf comes across the book, and then this little edge of white here. So I've got a basic shape going on, I've got the items in which I want in. I'm using my artistic license to be selective, because sometimes when you set a still life up, you realise you've given yourself too much information to work from. So you can always simplify it down. Right, I'm now going to move to some coloured pencils. These are ink tents. They're very, very sharp colours. And I'm going to up the way I see these colours so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to just put them in. Think about the shadows from the last demonstration that I did. I'm going to put them in. I'm going to work from this bottom right hand corner, which is against the rules, if you like. And then soft lines, not pressing on too much. just introducing bits of colour and not being afraid to put one over the top of the other. And I've said these are water soluble, so I'll immediately show you what I mean by that. Put a flat edge brush here in some clean water, take the excess water off the brush and pull it in, and as you can see, the water automatically lifts the colour, allows you to blend it and give the apricots some form. So it's a very nice loose way of working, but it has some real oomph when you put the water to it, the colour comes to life. And these are Inktense pencils. So they're kind of the colour of inks or, you know, strong watercolours, liquid watercolours. And I favour them a lot in my work. So I'm now going to come up to the teasel. What colour am I going to do here? I'm just going to look at the brown, start to put in marks which kind of represent the way the teasel actually grows. Think about the strength of the marks I'm putting down, how much am I going to leave in, how much am I going to let the water do the work, and I'm going to put another bit of colour behind it. So I'm going to go with the reddy orange again, just to give it a bit of contrast, make some of it slightly more intense. And again, I'm going to take the excess water off the brush, flat edge brush, nice light stroke, keeping a soft hand, bringing the teasel out into the composition. Okay, now the blue, the ginger jar, I think we need to give that some representation. So I've got a blue, and I'm going to just sweep the blue in, it's a blue-black in this case, in the direction of the way the vase is actually made. And I'm going to put a little bit of shadow in as it tucks itself behind the frame of the photograph. And we'll just use another blue, I think. There's a bit of contrast. Sharp. Keep it light, and then let the water do the work. Don't be heavy-handed. Keep cleaning the brush. Tucking it in behind this ivy leaf. And now we've represented our ginger jar quite carefully. It doesn't matter that there are some bits not covered by colour, because there's white on the jar anyway, and then we can go into it later and perhaps put some bits of white on, which I'll show you. So now I'm going to use some green, because we've got some plants in here. We've got this little ivy leaf at the bottom. We've got leaves coming across the top here, away from the rose, and this eucalyptus at the back. Initially, I'm just going to use the same colour, light-handed, and then I'm going to tuck just a little bit of another green in to give it a bit of contrast. We'll use this one. And I'm using the sharper line for a little bit more definition. And then I'm going to let the water do the work. That's quite strong. And this is a viridian green, which I'm going to knock back very quickly. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to use some white gouache paint. I'm just going to knock back the viridian green. Don't like it too much really, just highlight it a little bit, keep it loose. I'm going to use a little bit on the ginger jar to suggest the pattern. And then I'm going to use quite a lot behind here as the frame, and it should pick up, just gently pick up the actual lead, because that was also a water-soluble pencil. Same with the book. going to pull the colour down from the edge of the pencil work and the rose. And then what I'm going to do next is just using an even bigger brush and the pencil at the same time, or another pencil maybe. I use this one, this is a dark wash pencil. I'm just going to add a bit of interest in the top corner here, so we're not neglecting it. A bit of balanced composition. And then finally, just a little bit of brown to put our cardboard box in. So I'm going to do that with the red and a bit of black on the top rather than using a common brown. A little bit of brown there. You can use these pencils on top of wet paper and they'll still blend down. And then finally, if you wanted to tighten it up, you could just draw on top with a black or dark crayon to pull out some of the shapes. And introduce finally the last little bit of detail. The rose might benefit from it. This is a purple crayon, that's all right. And I'm going to stop there. So, just to recap, this is the first little drawing that I did using a pen which you can't rub out, to try and keep it fluid, to help get my eye into the composition and establish where everything sits in relation to each other. And that just helps you to focus on what is more important within that composition. This is actually using pencil this time, and just one colour to think about shadow, to get us a quick sketch, to really define the forms and think about making, this is obviously going to be the strongest part of the composition here, but again it helps to get your eye in and to carefully consider what it is that you're looking at and what you want to work from the most. And then finally, the last one, we've actually worked with coloured pencils, water-soluble pencils, and introduced elements of colour, bringing out the blue of the ginger jar, and working again on top with some white, and then finally, just a little bit of outlining. Cézanne used to work like this, just as a by, keeping it loose, but getting the feel of the objects as they sit within the composition. That's Janet Glenn Smith from CICCIC. Thank you very much for watching.